You've been saying the right words, but getting the wrong reactions. And deep down, you already feel it. Something is off, and no one ever taught you what it is. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is not about pickup lines or tricks. It's about the invisible emotional signals that most men completely miss. Signals that quietly decide whether a woman leans in or slowly pulls away. Most men think attraction is about saying something impressive, something clever, something that proves value. But attraction doesn't work like that. Attraction is not built on performance. It's built on emotional tension. And tension is created not by what you say, but how your words make her feel about herself in that moment. That's where almost everyone fails. You see, when a man is unsure of himself, his words start chasing approval. He asks questions that seek validation. He tries to impress. He over-explains. And without realizing it, he places the woman above him emotionally. Not in a respectful way, but in a way that quietly says, "Your opinion of me matters more than my opinion of myself." And the moment that happens, attraction starts to die. Because attraction, at its core, is built on emotional polarity. A woman doesn't feel drawn to a man who is trying to win her. She feels drawn to a man who already feels complete within himself and chooses her rather than needs her. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most men don't realize they're communicating neediness, not through obvious desperation, but through subtle language patterns, small phrases, tiny word choices, the tone behind simple sentences. These things reveal your internal state more clearly than anything else. And women pick up on it instantly, not logically, but emotionally. She might not sit there and think, "This man lacks confidence," but she will feel something slightly off, a lack of certainty, a lack of grounded presence, and her attraction will quietly fade, even if she can't explain why. So the question becomes, what actually creates attraction through words? It's not about memorizing lines. It's about understanding the psychological triggers behind certain phrases, why they work, what they signal, and how they shift emotional dynamics. There are specific types of statements that instantly change how a woman perceives you. Statements that signal calm confidence, emotional independence, a sense of grounded masculinity that doesn't need validation, but naturally commands attention. And the first type of phrase, the one almost no man uses correctly, is this: a statement that shows you see her without trying to impress her. Let that sink in. Most men either ignore this completely or they do the opposite. They compliment her in a way that puts her on a pedestal. "You're so beautiful. You're amazing. You're perfect." And while those words might sound positive, they often backfire. Why? Because they are predictable, safe, expected. Every other man is saying the same thing, and more importantly, they don't create emotional impact. They don't make her feel seen. They make her feel evaluated. There's a difference. When you evaluate a woman, you're placing her in a category. You're judging her value. But when you truly see her, you're recognizing something deeper, something specific, something that feels personal and rare. And that's where attraction begins to spark. Imagine the difference between saying, "You're beautiful," and saying something like, "There's something about the way you observe people. You notice things most don't." Do you feel that shift? One is generic, the other is intimate. One puts her on a pedestal, the other pulls her into a moment of curiosity and emotional awareness. Because now she's thinking, "Wait, what did he just notice about me?" And in that moment, you've done something powerful. You've created intrigue without chasing approval. But here's the key: you can't fake this. If you try to use this phrase as a trick, it will fall flat. Because what makes it work is not the words themselves, it's the presence behind them. The calm certainty, the lack of neediness, the feeling that you're not trying to impress her. You're simply expressing what you genuinely observe. That's rare. And rarity creates attraction. Now let's go deeper. Another mistake most men make is they try to keep conversations safe. They avoid tension. They avoid saying anything that might risk disapproval. They stay polite, agreeable, predictable, and in doing so, they become forgettable. Attraction doesn't live in safety, it lives in emotional contrast, in moments that feel slightly unpredictable, slightly different, slightly alive. This doesn't mean being rude or offensive, it means being real, unfiltered in a grounded, controlled way. Saying things that carry personality, not just politeness, because politeness doesn't spark attraction, presence does. And presence is communicated through how willing you are to express yourself honestly, without fear of losing her approval. Think about that. If you're constantly filtering your words to make sure she likes you, you're already giving away your power. But when your words come from a place of internal certainty, something shifts. She feels it, even if she can't explain it. And suddenly, the dynamic changes. Now she's not just listening to you, she's trying to understand you, trying to read you, trying to figure out what makes you different. That's when attraction begins to grow. Because attraction isn't about being liked. It's about being intriguing enough to be explored. And the men who understand this don't speak more. They speak differently. They slow down. They choose words that carry weight. They allow silence to exist without rushing to fill it. They aren't afraid of tension. They create it, hold it, and let it build. That's what makes their presence unforgettable. Now, here's something most people won't tell you. Women are not attracted to perfection. They're attracted to emotional authenticity backed by strength. Perfection feels fake, scripted, predictable. But a man who speaks with grounded honesty, who isn't afraid to express what he thinks, who doesn't collapse under pressure to impress, that man creates an emotional experience. And experiences are what people remember. Not words, not lines, but how you made them feel in your presence. So when you start to understand these deeper dynamics, something changes inside you. You stop chasing the right thing to say, and you start focusing on the right way to be. Because the truth is, the most powerful phrases are not powerful because of the words. They're powerful because of the mindset behind them. And once you shift that mindset, everything else starts to fall into place. The way you speak changes. The way you carry yourself changes. The way women respond to you changes. And suddenly, things that used to feel confusing start to make sense. But this is just the beginning. Because there are specific phrases, subtle, powerful, almost invisible, that can instantly shift how a woman feels around you, if you understand how to use them correctly. And most men never learn them, which is exactly why they stay stuck, repeating the same patterns, getting the same results, wondering what they're doing wrong. But now, you're starting to see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's a moment in every interaction where attraction either quietly grows or slowly collapses. And it usually happens when you open your mouth to respond. Not when you approach, not when you make eye contact, but when you reply. Because your response reveals something deeper than your words. It reveals your frame, your emotional position, whether you're trying to win her or simply meeting her as an equal. And the second phrase most men miss is one that signals something rare. You're not impressed too easily. Now be honest with yourself. How often have you responded to a woman's story, her job, her lifestyle, or even her personality with automatic admiration? Oh wow, that's amazing. That's so cool. That's incredible. It feels polite, it feels positive, it feels right. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When everything impresses you, nothing about you feels impressive. Because admiration, when given too freely, loses its value. Think about it this way. If someone praises everyone all the time for everything, their praise stops meaning anything. It becomes noise, and attraction thrives on meaning. So when a woman senses that you're easily impressed, she subconsciously places herself above you in the dynamic. Not because she wants to dominate, but because your behavior signals that you see her as higher value than yourself. And attraction needs balance. This is where the phrase comes in. Instead of reacting with automatic admiration, you respond with grounded curiosity mixed with selective approval. Something like, that's interesting. What made you choose that path? Do you feel the difference? You're not dismissing her. You're not overly praising her. You're engaging, but from a position of calm self-respect. And that's what makes it powerful. Because now, instead of you chasing her validation, she starts to feel like she's explaining herself to you, opening up, sharing more. And when someone invests emotionally, they become more attached to the interaction. This is a subtle shift, but it changes everything. Now, here's where most men get it wrong. They hear this idea and think it means they should act disinterested, or cold, or arrogant. That's not what this is. Coldness repels, arrogance creates resistance, but grounded selectiveness creates intrigue. It says, I'm open to you, but I'm not automatically sold. And that tension, that slight uncertainty, is where attraction begins to breathe. Because if a woman feels like she already has you completely figured out within minutes, there's nothing left to explore. No mystery, no curiosity, no emotional movement, and without movement, attraction fades. Now think about the opposite. When your responses are slightly unpredictable, not in a chaotic way, but in a controlled, self-assured way, you create emotional texture. Moments where she pauses and thinks, okay, this is different. That's what you want, not confusion, but intrigue. And that leads us to something even deeper. Attraction is not just about what you say, it's about what you don't say. Most men over-explain themselves. They fill silence with words. They try to make everything clear, logical, and understood. But attraction doesn't grow in clarity. It grows in emotional space. Space for her to wonder, space for her to interpret, space for her to lean in and try to understand you. And the more you remove that space, the less she feels. This is why one of the most powerful things you can say is actually less than you think. Short, calm, unforced. For example, instead of explaining your entire opinion, you might simply say, I see it a little differently. And then you pause. You don't rush to justify it. You don't try to convince her. You let that statement sit. Now something interesting happens. She becomes curious. What do you mean? How do you see it? And now, she's pulling you into the conversation. That's attraction in motion. Because attraction isn't about pushing yourself onto someone, it's about creating a dynamic where they want to pull you in. And that only happens when you're comfortable not over-giving, comfortable not over-explaining, comfortable holding your ground, without needing immediate approval. This kind of communication signals emotional strength, and emotional strength is one of the most attractive traits a man can have. Not loud confidence, not forced dominance, but quiet certainty, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself, because it already knows. Now let's go even deeper into a phrase that most men completely misunderstand. A phrase that, when used correctly, creates a powerful emotional shift, but when used incorrectly, destroys attraction instantly. It's a boundary. Yes, a simple boundary. Something like, I don't really enjoy that. Simple, calm, direct, no anger, no apology, no over-explanation, just truth. And here's why this matters. Most men are afraid to express boundaries with women they're attracted to. They fear losing her interest. They fear creating conflict. They fear being seen as too much or too difficult. So they tolerate things they don't actually like. They laugh at jokes they don't find funny. They agree with opinions they don't believe in. And slowly, they disconnect from themselves. But here's what they don't realize. Every time you abandon your own truth to keep someone else comfortable, you reduce your own attractiveness. Because attraction is built on authenticity backed by self-respect. And boundaries are proof of self-respect. When you calmly express what you like and don't like, without aggression, without insecurity, you send a powerful signal. I value myself enough to be honest. And that is rare. It creates a sense of emotional safety, not because you're agreeing with everything, but because you're real. Predictable honesty is far more attractive than unpredictable people-pleasing, because one feels grounded and the other feels unstable. Now here's something most people won't say out loud. Women test emotional strength, not consciously, not maliciously, but naturally. Through small moments, playful challenges, subtle disagreements, and in those moments, your response determines everything. If you collapse, if you seek approval, if you abandon your stance, attraction weakens. But if you stay calm, grounded, unshaken, even slightly amused, something shifts. She feels it. That you're not easily moved, that your identity isn't dependent on her reaction, that you're emotionally stable, and stability creates trust. Trust creates comfort, and comfort, mixed with intrigue, creates attraction. So when you start using phrases like this, not as techniques, but as natural expressions of who you are, you stop trying to control the outcome. And instead, you start controlling your presence, your energy, your responses, your emotional state, and that's where real power lives. Because the moment you stop trying to make her like you is the moment you become someone worth liking. Let that sink in. You don't attract by chasing approval. You attract by embodying self-respect and letting your words reflect it. And once that becomes natural, you don't need to memorize anything, because everything you say will already carry weight. But there's one more layer to this, a deeper psychological trigger that most men overlook completely. A phrase that doesn't just create attraction, it creates emotional connection, and that's where everything changes. There's a difference between a woman enjoying your presence and a woman feeling something she can't ignore when she's around you. Most men never cross that line. They stay in the safe zone, pleasant conversations, polite energy, surface-level connection, and they wonder why things never deepen, why attraction feels inconsistent, why she slowly loses interest even when everything seemed fine. But attraction doesn't grow in what's fine. It grows in what feels emotionally real, and that brings us to one of the most powerful phrases you can ever use, because it does something almost no man dares to do. It reveals emotional awareness without emotional weakness. The phrase is simple. That seems like something that really matters to you. Now, at first, it sounds almost too basic, too soft, too neutral, but what it actually does is open a door most men never even notice exists. Because when a woman shares something, her thoughts, her experiences, even small stories, most men respond in one of two ways. They either try to fix it, or they try to impress her with their own story. They interrupt the emotional flow. They shift the focus back to themselves. And without realizing it, they break connection. Because connection isn't built when you talk at someone. It's built when you understand what they feel beneath what they're saying. That's what this phrase does. It shows you're not just hearing her words, you're recognizing her emotional world. And that creates something rare, emotional safety mixed with intrigue. Because here's the truth most people overlook. A woman doesn't open up deeply because a man is nice. She opens up because she feels seen without being judged. And when you say something like, "That seems like something that really matters to you," you're not analyzing her. You're acknowledging her. You're giving her space to go deeper. And when she does, she becomes more emotionally invested in the moment. Now here's where it becomes powerful. You're not doing this in a needy way. You're not trying to win points. You're not agreeing with everything she says. You're simply present, grounded, aware, and that combination creates emotional gravity. She starts to feel something different around you, something she doesn't feel with most men, because most men are trying to be interesting, but very few men are actually interested in a real, grounded way, and people can feel the difference instantly. Now let's take this deeper. There's another phrase, one that creates a spark of tension and curiosity at the same time, a phrase that shifts the dynamic from casual interaction to emotional engagement. It's this: you're not exactly how you seem. Pause for a moment and really feel that. You're not accusing, you're not judging, you're not explaining, you're simply noticing and leaving space. And that space pulls her in, because now her mind starts working. What does he mean? What does he see? What part of me is he picking up on? And just like that, you've created intrigue without effort. This works because it touches on something deeply human. Everyone wants to feel understood, but not fully figured out. There's a balance. If you seem like you're trying too hard to analyze her, it feels invasive. But if you lightly point to something beneath the surface, without forcing it, it feels exciting, mysterious, alive, and now she's not just talking to you, she's engaged with you, trying to understand your perspective, trying to see herself through your eyes. That's a powerful emotional shift. Now, here's the key that most men miss. It's not about the exact words, it's about your delivery. If you say this with hesitation, it falls flat. If you say it like a rehearsed line, it feels fake. But if you say it calmly, almost casually, like it's just an observation, it lands. Because confidence isn't loud, it's certain. And certainty is what gives your words weight. Now let's go even deeper into something that separates average interactions from unforgettable ones. Most conversations stay logical. Facts, stories, opinions, small talk. But attraction lives in the emotional layer beneath that. And there's a phrase that pulls a conversation out of logic and into emotion almost instantly. It's this: how did that make you feel? Simple, direct, but incredibly powerful, if used at the right moment. Because now you're not just engaging with what happened, you're engaging with how it impacted her, and emotions are what people remember, not the details, not the exact words, but how they felt in that moment. When you guide a conversation into emotion, something changes. Walls come down, energy shifts, the interaction becomes more real, more human. And that's where attraction deepens. But again, this is not about becoming overly emotional or intense. It's about balance. You're grounded, but aware, calm, but engaged. You're not getting lost in her emotions. You're simply allowing them to exist. And that creates trust. Because she feels like she can be herself, without needing to perform. Now here's something even deeper. Attraction is not just about creating positive feelings, it's about creating varied feelings. Curiosity, intrigue, comfort, tension. When all of these exist together, the experience becomes addictive, because it's not flat, it's dynamic, alive, and the phrases you use are the tools that shape that emotional experience. Most men stay in one emotional lane, usually nice or friendly, but that doesn't create attraction. It creates comfort without spark, and spark is what makes someone think about you later, wonder about you, feel drawn back to you. So when you start using phrases that touch on emotion, perception, subtle mystery, you stop being just another conversation, and you become an experience, someone she remembers, not because you tried to impress her, but because something about you felt different. Now here's the part that changes everything. None of this works if you don't believe it. If your words are disconnected from your internal state, they lose power. Because people don't respond to words alone, they respond to energy, your tone, your timing, your presence. That's what gives meaning to what you say. So if you take anything from this, let it be this. Don't focus on saying the perfect thing. Focus on becoming someone whose words naturally carry depth, calmness, and self-respect. Because when that happens, even your simplest phrases will feel powerful. And that's when attraction stops feeling complicated. It becomes something you create without forcing it. But there's one final layer, one that ties everything together. A phrase that doesn't just spark attraction, it anchors it. There's a moment, subtle, almost invisible, where everything you've built either solidifies into something real or quietly fades into nothing. Most men never recognize this moment. They think attraction is about starting strong, saying the right things early, making a good impression, but attraction isn't decided at the beginning. It's decided in the transition, the shift from interest to emotional investment. And that's where the final phrase comes in, the one that doesn't just spark attraction, it anchors it. It's this: I enjoy talking to you, but I'm curious where this actually goes. Read that again slowly. There's something different about it. It's not needy, it's not vague, it's not overly intense. It's grounded, honest, and slightly challenging. And that combination is what makes it powerful, because most men fall into one of two extremes at this stage. They either hold back completely, afraid to express interest, afraid to risk rejection, afraid to ruin the vibe, or they go all in too fast, overcommitting, overexpressing, putting pressure on the interaction before it has space to grow. Both kill attraction. One creates confusion, the other creates pressure. But this phrase sits right in the middle. It acknowledges the connection without clinging to it. It expresses interest without losing self-respect. And most importantly, it introduces direction. Because here's something most people don't consciously realize. Attraction needs momentum. If things stay undefined for too long, energy fades, people drift, interest weakens. But when you calmly acknowledge what's happening and lightly question its direction, you create focus. Now she's not just enjoying the moment, she's thinking about the possibility of something more. And that thought is what deepens attraction. Now here's where it becomes even more powerful. You're not demanding an answer. You're not forcing a label. You're simply opening a door and seeing if she walks through it. And that's the key. You're inviting, not chasing, because chasing creates imbalance, but inviting creates choice. And when someone chooses to move closer to you, that's when attraction becomes real. Now let's go deeper into what this phrase communicates beneath the surface. It says, I value my time. I'm aware of what's happening. And I'm not afraid to explore it honestly. That's emotional leadership, not control, not dominance, but clarity. And clarity is rare, because most people hide behind ambiguity. They avoid directness. They hope things just happen without ever defining them. But uncertainty slowly kills connection. And when you're the one who brings calm clarity into the dynamic, you stand out instantly, not because you're trying to be different, but because you're willing to be real. Now, here's something even more important. When you say this, you have to mean it. You can't be secretly hoping for a specific outcome while pretending to be neutral. Because again, people feel what's underneath your words. If there's hidden pressure, it shows. If there's neediness, it leaks through. But if there's genuine curiosity, grounded in self-respect, it lands exactly how it should. Now imagine this moment from her perspective. She's been talking to you, feeling your presence, noticing something different about you, but maybe she hasn't fully defined it yet. And then you say, I enjoy talking to you, but I'm curious where this actually goes. Suddenly, everything becomes clear, not forced, not heavy, but intentional. And now she has a choice to lean in or step back. And here's the truth most men struggle to accept. That choice is everything, because attraction cannot be negotiated. It cannot be convinced. It can only be invited and responded to. So when you reach this point and you express yourself clearly, you're not trying to win. You're allowing reality to reveal itself. And that's where confidence becomes real. Not in getting a specific outcome, but in being okay with whatever outcome happens. Because your value is not dependent on her response. It never was. Now let's tie everything together. Every phrase you've heard, every shift in communication, all points back to one core principle. Self-respect expressed through presence. Not arrogance, not detachment, not performance, but a quiet, grounded sense of knowing who you are and not abandoning that for approval. Because the moment you start chasing validation, your words lose weight, your presence loses impact, and attraction begins to fade. But when your words come from a place of internal stability, even simple phrases become powerful because they carry truth, and truth is felt, not analyzed, not debated, felt. That's what makes someone unforgettable. Not perfection, not rehearsed lines, but authenticity, delivered with calm certainty. Now here's the part most people don't talk about. This doesn't just change how women respond to you, it changes how you see yourself. Because when you stop filtering your words through fear, when you stop trying to be liked, when you start expressing yourself honestly, calmly, and without pressure, you become someone different, someone more grounded, more clear, more in control of your emotional world. And that shift affects everything, your relationships, your confidence, your decisions, because now you're no longer reacting to how others might perceive you. You're acting from who you actually are. And that's where real attraction begins, not just from others, but from within yourself. Now let me ask you something most people avoid answering honestly. When you talk to someone you're attracted to, are you expressing who you really are? Or are you shaping yourself into who you think they'll like? Be honest with yourself, because that answer explains almost everything. If this opened your eyes even a little, drop your answer in the comments. I read more than you think. And if you know someone who keeps getting the same results, stuck in the same patterns, send this to them. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay close. because the more you understand these dynamics, the less you'll ever have to chase anything again.